Here's your news for August 11th, 2020. And your headlines for today include: what happened with Ric Flair after Raw went off the air? Dominik Mysterio shows off brutal marks. Rey Mysterio reacts. A few big names revealed as Retribution members. Fans concerned about status of Chris Jericho vs. Orange Cassidy for AEW Dynamite. Jim Cornette reacts. Yet another former WWE superstar to make their AEW debut. Nephew of former World Heavyweight Champion to make his wrestling debut soon. Former WWE wrestler reveals insecurity WWE has ever since AEW came into the scene. Future of Mike Tyson, and more. We are kicking off today with news from Raw as Ric Flair was betrayed by Randy Orton. After blaming the Nature Boy for having to face Kevin Owens, the Legend Killer beat down Flair with a low blow and a punt, and the show ended with the WWE Champion Drew McIntyre tending to the Hall of Famer. After the show, WWE's cameras caught the 16-time World Champion being put on a stretcher and taken out of the Performance Center. And given that there were reports before the show that Flair would be written off TV, it looks like fans won't be seeing the Nature Boy for quite some time. Speaking of Raw, this week's show also saw Dominik Mysterio appear, and he was left worse for wear during his contract signing by Seth Rollins. During the show, the Monday Night Messiah leveled Dominik with a series of kendo stick shots, and WWE uploaded photos of the youngster's scarred and beaten body for the fans to see the effect. To be fair to Rollins, it wasn't long ago that he was the one showing off the kendo stick marks that he received from Dominik, though the up-and-comer took a substantially worse beating at the hands of Rollins and Murphy this week. This certainly wasn't how Dominik wanted to celebrate signing his WWE contract, and fans can expect the third-generation superstar to be looking for revenge when he faces Rollins at SummerSlam. Unsurprisingly, one person who wasn't pleased about this attack was Dominik's father Rey, who took to Twitter with some not-so-PG language. After Andrade said that he's on Dominik's side, Mysterio replied to his former nemesis in a tweet that translates into English as, "That pays because he pays." CM Punk also weighed in on the situation, as on Instagram he said that Rey should shave Seth's head, and despite Mysterio once doing that to Punk himself, the former superstar joked that it had never been done. Rey clearly isn't pleased to see the man who took his eye now attacking his son with a kendo stick, and if Rey does plan on getting revenge on the Monday Night Messiah, both for his son and himself, then it seems that the former World Heavyweight Champion could sign a deal to stay with WWE. We've got some news from SmackDown next, as last week's show saw an appearance from Retribution, though there were some interesting individuals beneath the hoods. According to Dave Meltzer, the people under the masks and hoods this Friday were not the wrestlers who will play Retribution once they're revealed, and Meltzer noted that this was told to him outright. This is an interesting situation, as though fans have speculated that Tommaso Ciampa or Dominik Dijakovic could be a part of the group, especially after their social media accounts were recently blacked out. Others pointed out that they'd be too big to be the Retribution members who were on SmackDown, but now it seems that they could still be a part of the group. Dijakovic, in particular, recently tagged Vince McMahon in an interesting tweet before promptly deleting it, which many have seen as a sign that he's in the new stable. The group also appeared on Raw this week, where they smashed a window and flipped a car, and also played with the lights, notably during Orton's pun on Flair. It's also been reported that the Retribution members are being kept close to the chest by top WWE officials, as it seems fans will have plenty of time to speculate which men and women are part of the group before anyone is actually revealed. Over to AEW now, as there's concern that this Wednesday's match between Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy may not happen after all. Last week, Jericho's band Fozzy hosted a concert where many fans didn't social distance or wear masks, with many being close to the former world champion on the stage. Jericho himself defended the show by saying that precautions were taken to ensure everyone's safety, and Brian Alvarez noted on Wrestling Observer Live that the match is still planned for this week's Dynamite, though it all hangs on Jericho passing a test. The fact that there wasn't even a partition between Jericho and the crowd who were screaming and singing back to him is definitely concerning, though AEW is using blood testing, which has a much lower rate of inaccuracy than swab testing. Like everyone else, Jericho must pass his test before he gets to compete, and hopefully this week's Dynamite will see Le Champion face the freshly squeezed one. Speaking of Jericho, the AEW star recently banned controversial wrestling personality Jim Cornette from watching AEW programming, and now Cornette has responded. Though the Smoky Mountain Wrestling promoter is no stranger to being banned, especially in the past few years, he fired back at Y2J by referencing the recent concert scandal, saying, "Chris, I appreciate your consideration of my sanity, but I do it as a service to the wrestling fans. They need some measure of comfort in these cosplay times we're in. But don't worry, I never watch Dark. P.S. Careful of the drooling bikers." It's hardly surprising that Cornette isn't taking this ban seriously, and whilst he says he won't be watching Dark, we're expecting the controversial figure to be as critical as ever of AEW Dynamite and its pay-per-views. One person who is more than happy with AEW is Dasha Gonzalez, as the former WWE announcer is set to make her in-ring debut. As part of AEW's Deadly Draw Women's Cup tournament, it was confirmed that the former Dasha Fuentes will team with another WWE alum, as she'll be working alongside Rachel Ellering. The pairing will face Ivelisse and Diamante in the Deadly Draw, and it'll be interesting to see how the former backstage interviewer gets on. This isn't the only opportunity AEW has given her, as she's also a voice on the company's Spanish-language commentary team, as it seems being released from WWE has worked out for her in the end. Speaking of AEW's women's division, Britt Baker is continuing to rehab her knee, but that hasn't stopped her from voicing her opinions about the company. Appearing on Dynamite each week, Baker has claimed that her injury is part of one big conspiracy that seemingly everyone in AEW is a part of, and on Twitter, questioned whether the physical therapist, who is making her undergo some painful rehab, is a part of this conspiracy as well. Time will tell just when exactly Baker is able to return to the ring, but it's great to see she hasn't lost any momentum despite this injury setback. We've got some very interesting news from the world of football now, as Bronson Steiner, the son of Rick Steiner and the nephew of Scott, has been released from the Baltimore Ravens. Jamison Henley of ESPN confirmed the news on Twitter after Rex Steiner signed with the team in April, and this could mean a move to wrestling could be imminent. Bronson has said that he one day wants to follow in the family business, and in our video 10 Shocking Leaked WWE Plans for 2020, we covered that the WWE has a lot of interest in Bronson, and hope that signing him could also bring back Scott as well. Time will tell whether Bronson joins WWE now that his time with the Ravens is done, and if you want to find out more about the rumors for Bronson and Scott and other plans WWE have, click the link in the description or at the end of this video. Speaking of football, the NFL season is just a few weeks away, and that could mean big problems for WWE. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the league is considering scheduling games on Friday nights, which would put football in direct competition with SmackDown. This could happen if college football doesn't return to screens anytime soon, as networks are desperate to fill live sports programming, meaning football fans could see games on Fridays and Saturdays. With SmackDown and WWE programming as a whole already dealing with poor ratings, competing with the NFL is the last thing the company needs right now. And though the WWE already has to deal with this each year with Monday Night Football vs. Raw, hopefully we'll find out soon enough if the Blue brand will be impacted. We are looking at WWE's war with AEW next, as it wasn't too long ago that Vince McMahon was offering lucrative multi-year deals to superstars. One person who saw all this happen is Brian Myers, and this week the former Kurt Hawkins spoke on the Sitting Ringside podcast about the money that was on the table. He said, "It was astronomical. Once someone said no, then it went up for everybody. It was more money than I ever imagined making in this business. The big thing for them was the years. Everybody's contract was 5 years. The boys were calling it the 'please don't go to AEW' contract." Myers didn't end up going to AEW, but following his release in April, has signed with Impact Wrestling instead. One person who did end up going to AEW though is Myers' former tag team partner Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder. And given the status of both men in their respective companies, the WWE may be regretting letting the former Raw Tag Team Champions go earlier this year. We've got Batista news next, as though the future Hall of Famer is a specimen in the ring, he recently admitted that he struggled with promo work at the start of his career. Speaking to Sports Illustrated about his OVW class, which included Brock Lesnar, John Cena, and Randy Orton, the Animal explained his promo influences, saying, Since the beginning of my wrestling career, I was so terrified to be on the microphone, so I'd subconsciously channel a bit of Hulk Hogan in the Macho Man. Batista added that he still occasionally channels the Hulkster, leading to an awkward conversation with Hogan, who thought Batista was making fun of him. But given his success in Hollywood, it's clear that the former world champion is now a much more confident speaker. More news from AEW, as we recently covered that Chris Jericho isn't finished with Mike Tyson, but it now looks like Y2J will have to wait even longer to face the baddest man on the planet. It's been reported by The Athletic that Tyson's return fight against Roy Jones Jr. has now been postponed, and though it was meant to be on September 12th in Carson, California, it'll now be held on November 28th. No explanation was given for the postponement, though with the 54-year-old preparing for a return to boxing, he certainly doesn't want to risk an injury by appearing in AEW with Jericho. Jericho added recently that he planned on facing Tyson at AEW's November pay-per-view, but now it looks like Le Champion will have to wait until 2021 to get his hands on the WWE Hall of Famer. And finally, we're ending with news from SummerSlam, as 2 more title matches have officially been added to the card for SummerSlam. Sasha Banks will defend her Raw Women's Championship against Asuka at SummerSlam. After it was set up on SmackDown last Friday, WWE has also officially confirmed that The Fiend Bray Wyatt will challenge for Braun Strowman's Universal Championship at the pay-per-view. WWE Champion Drew McIntyre defends against Randy Orton. Raw Tag Team Champions The Street Profits defend against Andrade and Angel Garza. United States Champion Apollo Crews defends against MVP, and Seth Rollins takes on Rey Mysterio. Please also check out our top 10 video, 10 Shocking WWE Surprises Planned for 2020. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so that you don't miss out on any updates we post on our channel.